Hello everybody and welcome to another video. Today is Tuesday, 1 week before the next patch, and as ever ArenaNet have released a bit of information for us to sink our teeth into about the next patch. The trailer includes a fair few interesting things I wanted to A, show you guys, and B, dissect so that we know generally what they're hinting at and what to expect. So, this is what they've released, only a trailer for Entanglement. It has changed from, say, last year, where we'd get a trailer and then a bunch of other goodies. We're going to have to wait until the patch itself to get a lot of information, but you'd be surprised how much is buried here. So before we get into the trailer, which is all very exciting, first, they did release this line of text along with it. There are secrets hidden within the newly revealed area of Drytop, just waiting to be discovered. Continue your adventures in the Maguma Wastes and take a stand alongside your fellow heroes against an ancient, growing threat. Now that may just sound like there's no useful information there, but there is something very key they mentioned at the start. Secrets hidden within the newly revealed area of Drytop. Some of you may be out of the loop with this, but we got a new map last patch called Drytop, and it wasn't very big. Turns out if you break out of the map, you can explore an awful lot more than what is on display. Beyond those walls outside of the map isn't just dead terrain, untextured, unmodeled with nothing going on. It's actually a full-fledged map. There are so much as NPCs out there and detailed environments. It looks like the way that ArenaNet are dealing with this is they've given us a new chunk of the map that is the same size as anything else. South Sun Cove, Brisbane Wildlands, Metrica Province, any regular map, one of these big ugly rectangle-sized ones, and slowly through multiple Living World updates, they're revealing more and more of it. So with this line of text, we can infer that there will be an expansion to the playable terrain next patch. Secrets hidden within the newly revealed area of Drytop. Yes, it's still Drytop, but that doesn't mean we're lingering in the same area we were before. They seem like they're going to expand it, which is awesome. What you see in the trailer does include a fair few new areas, so this lends into this quite nicely, but it also, very excitingly, and you're going to question why this is so cool, it features some old areas too, only they seem to have been attacked. So anyway, we'll get into it. I'm going to do a, not frame by frame, but clip by clip breakdown of what we are seeing. The trailer opens with a giant Centaur camp, and it looks like a bunch of them are on the move. They're all running out to attack somewhere. I don't take this to mean that the Centaurs are going to get heavily involved in our conflicts this patch. I take this to mean that maybe in the new area we get to travel to, we will find there is some kind of meta event to do with the Centaurs. At launch, ArenaNet did a bunch of stuff with Centaurs in Guild Wars 2, too much in my opinion. But if you look at stuff like Harathi Hinterlands, they were trying to use their dynamic event system to create interesting push-pull stuff. I think they might be re-exploring that idea, and what we're seeing is just a small section of the meta event where the Centaurs are actually sending out reinforcements to an area or something. What is interesting is the fact that these are Centaurs. Now, Centaurs, you might think as a Guild Wars 2 player, oh, these are just creatures that live in Kryta, right? They just live in Kryta. Well, actually, historically, Centaurs have lived in many places in Tyria. There were some that lived in the Crystal Desert, there were some that lived in the Shiver Peaks, and yes, there were some that lived in the Maguma Jungle. Funny thing is, all of the Centaurs in the first game had names for their tribes, depending on where they lived, right? So you had the Modnir, and these people lived in the Shiver Peaks, I believe. The Lasaru were the ones that lived in the Crystal Desert. But the ones that lived in the Maguma Jungle never actually had a name for their tribe. And so when Guild Wars 2 came out, the devs set up this story. They said, right, many of the warring Centaur bands have all now, formed together, and you can find them there. You know, you've got Tamini, you've got Modnir working together in Guild Wars 2, but they're all sort of in an unshaky alliance to try and wrestle control of Kryta off of the humans so they have somewhere safe to live. Well, what about the Centaurs that lived in the Maguma Jungle, these ones without a name for their tribe? When they are now introduced in Guild Wars 2, because we're returning to this region, will we get that lore? Will they have generic placeholder Centaur names like Maguma Hunter and Maguma Protector? Or will they have a tribe, and will they talk to us perhaps a bit about why they didn't join up with all the other ones who are in Kryta right now, and why they wanted to maintain their independence, what they've been doing there? Don't forget, Centaurs are intelligent to an extent, so this is a good opportunity for them. My worry is that we will just get meta events, and it will just be Centaurs running around all over the place, but hey, fingers crossed, right? Anyway, so that's just the very first shot. We see some Centaurs. Doesn't seem to have much relation to the rest of the trailer, because from here on they do seem to set up a bit of a narrative within the trailer. The next frame shows Destiny's Edge 2.0, they are walking through what looks to be a rather lush jungly area. Drytop so far hasn't had basically any of that at all. It's been very arid, dust storms, dry plains, but this place looks quite jungly. But most notably, in this shot you can see two things. Number one, behind them is some electrical band of magic / energy that is like ricocheting through the air in a long stream behind them. This isn't something we've seen in Guild Wars 2. We've seen floating rocks in Guild Wars 2. We have seen magical anomalies. Most of the skill points you communicate with are meant to be areas of power, for example. But we've never seen anything quite like that. The second thing you'll notice in this shot is the Destiny's Edge 2.0. They're all walking forward slowly, but they're all looking up. They're all staring up at something big in the distance. What could that possibly be? Well, the next shot seems to be a reverse of what we're seeing there. The camera then pans behind them and gives us a much greater view of what they can see. And indeed, above them, this magical band of energy seems to be arcing way over their heads, high in the sky. And it's got loads of giant bits of terrain and earth, and maybe these are big leaves, spiraling around it in really quite a cinematic way. I think that looks really cool, but the question is, what the hell is this thing and what's it doing out in the Maguma Wastes? Some people have been speculating this has something to do with ley lines. Scarlet was doing much of her research in the later years of her life around ley lines. She knew ley lines were the key to at least waking up Morimoth. They are heavily related to the Elder Dragons, so they're probably not out of the story completely. But ley lines are elusive currents of magic that exist deep, deep, deep beneath Tyria. Even in the most recent patch, Timey was talking about how the Asura have struggled so much to find the ley lines because they're so tricky. Can we really say, oh look, there's some magic in the sky, this is clearly a ley line? I don't think so. What is likely though is something's tampering with the ley lines and maybe drawing some of that power out of the ground, because that's where we seem to see it coming from. And the next shot seems to confirm this to an extent. What we see in the next shot just looks really bizarre. It's some kind of like grid, matrix, weird, Asuran architecture style machine plomped out there in the jungle that Destiny's Edge 2.0 seemed to have happened across. What is this thing? Well, if you were quite eagle-eyed last patch, you will have noticed that in Scarlet's house, there was a blueprint, a schematic on the wall that showed off basically exactly this. Whatever that machine was that Scarlet had drawn on her wall back then is actually out here in the Maguma Waste. I believe that this is a machine that Scarlet devised to try and draw power out of the ley lines, and maybe it's malfunctioning somewhat, or maybe it's been doing its job. What is its job? Perhaps it has something to do with its proximity to Morimoth. Yes, Scarlet managed to wake him up by tapping the ley lines out in Lion's Arch, but how did they know to like affect something over in the Maguma Wastes? Maybe because of this machine or many machines like it. On the blueprint, it should be on the screen for you guys right now. You will notice a lot of new writing. This stuff is translatable, but there's not really anything amazingly interesting on there. It says stuff like server seam line, 10 SVC GN pivots, flooded control, hardcode wiring. There's not much you can derive from it. There is one interesting line here that says wire dragons come, but I am running low on speculation as to what that could even mean. I have read some people saying, oh, maybe this is just an early prototype of waypoints. Maybe the wire dragons come is just because these things gather a lot of magic. Once they hit a threshold, then the dragons want to come to consume it. All I can say with reasonable confidence is this has probably got something to do with Scarlet and the manipulation of either dragons and or ley lines. But that's what Destiny's Edge look like they're going to find next patch, and I guess we'll get our answers then. Then we have a cut to black for a short period of time and an opening on a totally new shot. This has broken the narrative. We're no longer with Destiny's Edge in the trailer. We're now somewhere completely different. In fact, we're not even in Drytop. Next we get a shot of Timberline Falls. Yeah, what the hell has Timberline Falls got to do with any of the current living world? Well, the Pact look like they're coming back into the story, and this I'm very excited about. In Timberline Falls, you guys might remember through your personal story, there is a reasonably prominent Pact camp set up out there. I think it's called Concordia Camp, or at least the waypoint there is the Concordia waypoint. And you can see in this trailer that that random place on the other side of the world has just been attacked by loads of thorns. They've overrun the place, and the next couple of shots in the trailer show members of the Pact. It's either a visual warrior or just a Pact warrior standing around looking in amazement at all these thorns that apparently have attacked them, and then this guy gets grabbed, tossed around, and presumably killed. Why have these people across the other side of the world just been attacked by thorns? Well, the obvious answer is this is Morimoth lashing out at the Pact because he perceives them as a threat. This is really exciting to me for several reasons. Number one, it's a solid reason to get the Pact involved back in the story. Mechanically, I guess as an aside too, it's a cool reason to go back to Timberline Falls. It's a nice way of saying, hey, yeah, look, the living world is adding new areas, but that doesn't stop us from doing cool things in existing places in Tier 2, just like we did in Season 1. But number two, it does something really powerful for Morimoth. It shows that he is intelligent. Now, this is one of the most interesting things about the Elder Dragons, going into their intelligence. There was a lot of stuff in late personal story for Zaitan that suggested he was being really smart about where he was sending his armies, how he was going about things. There were mechanics of war that Zaitan was adhering to. He wasn't just this evil, malevolent, hurricane-like force. There was actual reason behind him, and that made him so much more of an interesting villain. However, all that stuff was underplayed and poorly dived into throughout the regular personal story, and overall, I didn't really like the idea of fighting Zaitan, and I sort of felt like maybe the fight against Morimoth is going to be the same. What if there, again, is no depth to Morimoth? He's just this evil thing, this evil almost location on the map we're eventually going to get to. But showing that straight away Morimoth has gone and attacked the patch means early on in this story, they're establishing to us as players that Morimoth is thinking about how best it can overcome us, the players. It is doing intelligent things. It is seeing the one unified force out there in Tyria and lashing out against it, and that is fantastic. It actually makes me so much more excited just in this one shot of the trailer at the prospect of fighting Morimoth and having a cool plot as we go against him than anything else has so far. The third and final thing it does is it makes Morimoth feel like a threat. You know, this is something that's very important for Elder Dragons. Right now, oh yeah, we're going to go kill Morimoth, but what's he really done to us? We've seen a couple of thorns when we started going towards his territory. Who cares? Well, no, now this shows, one, he's lashing out, and two, he has great capability. He is all the way over in the Maguma Waste, and he's had the influence to attack and overrun a Pact camp in Timberline Falls. That shows he has strength that you can possibly not escape, and it's that fear and that threat that is another big driver for why we should actually want to kill this damn guy. It doesn't come as like a big surprise to me that he has such a reach. If you think about just before Season 2 came out and they introduced like the Great Jungle Worm, and there were husks there and sort of hints that this may have had something to do with Morimoth, that again was nowhere near the Maguma Waste, so it shows he has a wide reach, and if they keep this kind of stuff up, it's going to be fantastic. Especially the idea that next patch we get to talk to the Pact and we get to bring them in. We get to step up once again as Commander. That's not it for the trailer. Unfortunately, I think that's where the trailer does peak. Next, we seem to get just an arbitrary shot of what looks like a regular area in Drytop. Some people were saying you can see Zephyrite airship wreckage in the background of a small Asura. I think this is just meant to be a player character, not actually an NPC. If it is an NPC, he's a damn cool looking NPC. But there's a giant attacking this NPC, so it looks like giants are going to be coming back into the story. Are they direct minions of Morimoth? I don't know whether I necessarily buy that. I doubt it. But it at least shows that the devs have realized, oh, we have like Giant Slayer in the game and no giants for players to kill, so here, we'll start adding them. Plus, they have already established that giants do live around there with one of the dynamic events very close to where the new map is entered in Brisbane Wildlands. So we do have some giants there. It's nice to see at least that they're remembering the wildlife they set up in this region of the world. And the very last shot of the trailer is the town of Prosperity, also under attack by vines. In fact, it shows someone being hung by vines on this, and thorns hung around their neck. I actually think that's a really cool shot. It reminded me a lot of stuff we used to see in Nightfall, where the environments you'd walk around were very kind of graphic and there was a lot of death. I don't think we've ever seen someone actually be hung by their neck in Guild Wars 2. It's always been far more cartoony and kiddie than that, but there he is, just sort of swinging there for all to see, strangled out by the thorns, and the mining town seems to be in disarray. I do not believe that this place is going to be permanently destroyed in the patch, though. This is a prediction I may be proven wrong on. It would make sense for ArenaNet to now destroy the town of Prosperity just because they want Living World to continue having that thing where it's like, oh yeah, it will permanently change landscape, not just add new landscape. So destroying Prosperity would be quite good. But because of all the stuff we've already seen in the story for the first patch, I can't see how any of that would work if they now just blew up the town with thorns and it was forever overrun. Instead, I think this could be like the climax of the patch, or a big part of the patch, maybe the open of the story. I think it will be an instance where all this stuff is damaged and we'll go in there and we'll cut the thorns back and they'll recede, and then the town should go somewhat back to normal. Normal enough, at least, so that players playing Chapter 1 again can walk over there and, you know, question all the miners about what's going on with the Sylvari in the area and so forth. If it is permanently destroyed, then maybe this will demonstrate to players how ArenaNet plan to do this kind of thing with transitioning Season 1 Living World into the Living Story Journal as well. But I can't see how they'll do it, so that's something I'm a little bit curious about, but not as excited as the Pact stuff. Anyway, there you go, guys. That's the trailer. Thank you very much for watching. Are you excited? I certainly am. Can't wait to get Trahan back. And I guess I'll see you when the patch comes out with plenty of information then. Anyway, thanks, guys. Have a great day. There will be a link in the description to the trailer itself if you want to check it out. And I will see you tomorrow. Have a good one.